Beef prices soar. What you need to know for summer grilling. Beef prices reach unprecedented heights. Understanding the surge in summer grilling costs. This year, the cost of beef has skyrocketed, making summer barbecues more expensive than ever. With supply issues and soaring demand, experts caution that it may take several years before prices stabilize. As we approach Labor Day, many are bracing for a hefty bill at the grill. In June, the price of 100% ground beef exceeded $6 per pound for the first time since the 1980s, according to the Labor Department. While there may be a slight decrease in prices after the grilling season wraps up, significant relief is not expected anytime soon. David Anderson, a professor and extension economist at Texas A&M, states, "If we're hoping to see prices drop to levels we experienced last year or even 5 or 6 years ago, that's quite unlikely. However, there is a possibility for some relief from the current summer price spike." What's causing the increase in beef prices? Several factors have contributed to the tightening of the nation's cattle supply over the years. Recent drought conditions have significantly increased the cost of cattle feed, prompting ranchers to send more cows to slaughter. According to a January report from the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, the national beef cow herd is at its lowest level since 1961. Additionally, in May, the USDA suspended live cattle imports from Mexico due to the spread of the New World screwworm, which has further restricted the U.S. supply and driven prices higher. The larvae of this fly can inflict severe and often fatal damage to livestock, as noted by the USDA. Despite the rising costs, demand for beef remains robust. The USDA projects a slight increase in consumption this year compared to 2024. To meet this demand, the U.S. has increasingly relied on imports, particularly for lean beef trimmings used in ground beef. Approximately 20% to 30% of ground beef is imported from countries like Australia and Brazil. Potential tariff impacts. The looming threat of tariffs from the Trump administration could exacerbate the situation. For example, Brazil is facing a 50% tariff starting August 1st, while Brazilian beef currently incurs tariffs ranging from 10% to 36.4%, depending on the import size. Anderson highlights that these tariffs introduce significant uncertainty into the market. When can we expect beef prices to drop? Typically, lower demand leads to lower prices, suggesting that consumers might see some relief as the weather cools. Anderson notes, historically, beef prices tend to decline after mid-year, and shoppers may opt for more affordable cuts as the year progresses. "I believe there's a chance we could see lower prices than we have in recent weeks." However, he cautions that prices are unlikely to revert to the $3 to $5 range that shoppers enjoyed in previous years. This is partly due to the time it takes for ranchers to rebuild their herds. For instance, if a rancher decides to keep a calf born this spring, it will take years before it is ready for market. Anderson explains, this means we're looking at 2029 for any significant increase in beef production. It's simply a matter of biology and time. The timing of price adjustments also depends on the ongoing demand for beef. Michael Swanson, chief agricultural economist at the Wells Fargo Agri-Food Institute, points out that higher beef prices are enabling ranchers to expand their herds. However, if demand decreases and cattle prices fall, the recovery process could be prolonged. Currently, cattle farmers and ranchers are operating with razor-thin profit margins, as reported by economist Bernd Nelson from the American Farm Bureau Federation. Swanson adds, the supply chain is extremely tense right now due to the unprecedented amounts of money at stake in their operations. Tips for saving on beef purchases. For those looking to save money on beef, Swanson recommends being open to trying different cuts of meat. According to June data from the Labor Department, all uncooked ground beef, $6.34 per pound, up 11% from last year. Chuck roast, $8.20 per pound, up 7.2%. Round roast, $7.76 per pound, up 12.8%. Sirloin steak, $12.92 per pound, up 12.7%. Beef for stew, $8.02 per pound, up 10.7%. Swanson notes, while everyone loves filet mignon, there are many cuts that offer better value for your money. Some less popular cuts can be incredibly flavorful if you're willing to cook them slowly. What are your thoughts on the rising beef prices? Do you think the tariffs will have a lasting impact? Share your opinions in the comments below. Why beef prices are skyrocketing in 2025. What you need to know. Beef prices are skyrocketing, and it's becoming a significant concern for consumers everywhere. New York CNN. First, we witnessed the dramatic rise in egg prices, and now it's beef that's making headlines. Many Americans may recall the last time they were taken aback by soaring grocery prices was during the egg crisis, when prices reached unprecedented levels due to a severe avian flu outbreak. Fortunately, after the situation was brought under control and producers managed to replenish their supplies, egg prices began to decline. Now, however, beef prices are reaching alarming heights, having surged nearly 9% since January, as reported by the Department of Agriculture. Currently, the average retail price for beef stands at $9.26 per pound. The Consumer Price Index for June revealed that steak and ground beef prices have increased by 12.4% and 10.3%, respectively, over the past year. But here's where it gets controversial. Reducing beef prices is likely to be a far more complex challenge than it was for eggs. Michael Swanson, the chief agriculture economist at Wells Fargo, explains, beef is way more complicated than eggs. The cattle industry resembles the Wild West of the protein market, while the egg market operates more like corporate America with its structured supply and demand management. The surge in beef prices has been a decade in the making, driven by a combination of factors including dwindling cattle herds, prolonged drought conditions, and an increase in imported beef, all while consumer demand remains robust. In a recent earnings call, Tyson Foods CEO Donnie King remarked, beef is experiencing the most challenging market conditions we've ever seen. According to the American Farm Bureau Federation, AFBF, cattle herd sizes are currently at their lowest in 74 years. The profitability of cattle ranching has diminished significantly, leading many ranchers to exit the industry. Even with these record-high prices, the profit margins for cattle farmers and ranchers are extremely tight due to persistently high supply costs. AFBF economist Bernd Nelson noted in a market intel report from May that even with these record-high prices, margins for cattle farmers and ranchers are razor-thin thanks to continued elevated supply costs. One of the major contributors to these supply costs is feed. Ongoing drought conditions across vast areas of U.S. ranchland have severely impacted pastures, forcing ranchers to rely on more expensive feed options instead of allowing cattle to graze freely on grass, as highlighted by the AFBF. Simultaneously, American consumers are seeking more variety in their beef options. Imported beef from countries such as Argentina, Australia, and Brazil now constitutes approximately 8% of U.S. beef consumption, according to Swanson. Meanwhile, beef exports have seen a significant decline, dropping by 22% in May compared to the previous year, as reported by the AFBF. Swanson pointed out, it's a big change that we've seen this year that wasn't on anybody's playbook. Only a couple of years ago, we were net neutral, where we exported some and imported some. He added that we can expect to see an increasing amount of beef consumption in the United States being supplied by the global market, which is eager to meet demand since the U.S. offers the highest-priced beef in the world. Despite the soaring prices, Americans continue to consume beef, with overall demand remaining strong, according to the AFBF. In response to these high prices, some retailers are getting creative in their approach to cut costs. Last month, Walmart launched its first-ever beef processing facility, located in Olathe, Kansas. This new facility allows Walmart to collaborate directly with its suppliers, eliminating the middleman and reducing costs. John Laney, Walmart's Executive Vice President of Food, stated in a news release, "This is the first case-ready facility fully owned and operated by Walmart, and that milestone ensures we're able to bring more consistency, more transparency, and more value to our customers." As for when beef prices might start to decline, Nelson suggests that it largely depends on consumer behavior. He explained, U.S. consumer demand for meat historically has grown with improved household financial situations and then falls when incomes drop. If consumer confidence declines alongside household financial uncertainty, demand for beef could be at risk, especially in the face of record-high retail prices. This scenario could leave producers and ranchers in an even more precarious position. Swanson expressed concern, stating, "I say we're closing in on the peak of this current cycle. That's the real concern that this industry has. Nobody wants to be caught holding the bag with higher-priced cattle when cattle prices start to decline, which they will inevitably." What do you think? Are you feeling the pinch of rising beef prices in your grocery bills? Do you believe the market will stabilize soon, or are we in for a prolonged period of high prices? Share your thoughts in the comments. U.S. beef price surge. Why your burgers and steaks are getting pricier. The price of beef in the United States has reached unprecedented levels, leaving many consumers shocked at the cost of their favorite summer grilling staples. If you've recently tried to buy hamburger patties or steaks, you're likely aware of the steep prices. But here's where it gets controversial. Experts predict that relief from these soaring costs is not on the horizon anytime soon. As of June, the average price for a pound of ground beef hit $6.12, marking an increase of nearly 12% compared to the same time last year. Similarly, the average cost of uncooked beef steaks rose by 8%, now sitting at $11.49 per pound. This trend isn't just a fleeting issue, it's part of a larger, ongoing situation that has been developing over the past 2 decades. The primary reason for this price surge is a tight supply of cattle, coupled with the enduring popularity of beef among consumers. To put this into perspective, the U.S. cattle herd has been on a steady decline for years. As of January 1st, the total number of cattle and calves in the U.S. was recorded at 86.7 million, which is an 8% drop from the peak in 2019. This figure represents the lowest cattle population since 1951, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Several factors have contributed to this decline, including prolonged drought conditions and fluctuating cattle prices. Adding to the complexity, a troublesome parasite has emerged in Mexico, and the potential for new tariffs could further exacerbate the situation, leading to even higher prices. Let's delve deeper into the reasons behind the rising beef prices. Shrinking herd size. The American beef industry has made significant advancements in breeding techniques, allowing ranchers to produce the same amount of beef with fewer cattle. However, the onset of a severe drought in 2020 has severely impacted pasture conditions and increased feed costs for cattle, as reported by the American Farm Bureau. This drought has persisted, particularly affecting the western states, and has placed additional financial strain on ranchers who already operate with narrow profit margins. In response to these challenges, many farmers opted to cull more female cattle than usual. While this decision temporarily boosted beef supplies, it ultimately reduced the future breeding stock, leading to a tighter supply of cattle and, consequently, higher prices. Currently, cattle prices have skyrocketed, with some animals fetching over $230 per hundredweight, which translates to thousands of dollars for individual cattle. This situation creates a dilemma for ranchers. Should they sell their cattle now to take advantage of these record-high prices, or hold onto them for future breeding? As David Anderson, a livestock economist at Texas A&M, explains, ranchers are caught in a balancing act. For them, the balance is, do I sell that animal now and take this record high check? Or do I keep her to realize her returns over her productive life when she's having calves? So far, the trend has leaned towards selling, as ranchers seize the opportunity for immediate profits. The disease factor ***. Adding to the supply issues is the emergence of a flesh-eating pest known as the New World screwworm fly, which has been detected in cattle herds in Mexico. This has led to a complete halt on cattle imports from Mexico, which typically accounts for about 4% of the beef processed in the US. The female flies lay their eggs in the wounds of warm-blooded animals, and the larvae that hatch feed on live flesh, posing a significant threat to cattle health. Agricultural economist Bernd Nelson from the Farm Bureau notes that the loss of these cattle is further tightening supply and driving prices upward. Tariff implications ***. While President Donald Trump's tariffs have not yet had a significant impact on beef prices, they could become another factor pushing prices higher. The US imports over £4 billion of beef annually, primarily lean beef trimmings that are blended with fattier cuts to create the ground beef varieties consumers prefer. Much of this lean beef comes from Australia and New Zealand, which currently face a 10% tariff, but some imports come from Brazil, where tariffs could reach as high as 50%. If these tariffs remain in place for an extended period, meat processors will face increased costs for imported lean beef, which could be challenging to replace due to the US beef production system's focus on fattier cuts known for their marbling. Future price trends ***. As we enter the peak grilling season, demand for beef in the US remains robust, which Kansas state agricultural economist Glyn Tunza suggests will help sustain higher prices. If prices continue to soar, consumers may start opting for more affordable hamburger meat over steaks, but so far, this shift hasn't been widely observed. Interestingly, there hasn't been a significant increase in chicken or pork purchases as alternatives to beef. Recently, there have been signs of improvement, as drought conditions have eased, leading to better pasture conditions, and grain prices have dropped due to reduced export demand for corn linked to tariffs. These factors might encourage ranchers to retain their cattle for breeding, potentially expanding herd sizes in the future. However, even if ranchers decide to increase their herds, it will take at least 2 years to breed and raise new cattle, and we won't see the effects of these decisions until later this fall when ranchers typically make such choices. Nelson emphasizes that there are still numerous obstacles to expanding the herd. For instance, a young farmer looking to adjust 25 bred heifers to their herd would need to be prepared to spend over $100,000 at auction, all while facing high borrowing costs. Typically, beef prices experience a seasonal decline as grilling season winds down into the fall, but any price drops this year are likely to be modest at best. In conclusion, the landscape of beef pricing is complex and influenced by a myriad of factors, from environmental challenges to economic decisions made by ranchers. As consumers, it's essential to stay informed about these dynamics. What are your thoughts on the rising beef prices? Do you believe the current trends will continue, or do you see potential for change? Share your opinions in the comments.